overall, I think this team really suffered a little more than we're giving them credit for because they didn't do the little things as far as playing in the preseason, which allow you to play better going into the first game. Do you still think that it's a plus, even though they came in perfectly healthy, besides Dillard? But do you see the disparity between the way Detroit was flying around and the Eagles' offense was flying around?
And after win Monday here on Birds 365, Barrett Brooks in for Johnny Mack, who's coming back from Detroit. Our first guest still in Motown. He's leaving shortly thereafter, and we get a couple of first glances from him before he gets back here to Philly. He was there yesterday for the Eagles' debatable 38-35 win. Chris Franklin from NJ.com comes on with us.
So, how you guys doing this morning?
Good morning, man. Good morning.
Good morning, man. Who'd have thought? You know what? I gotta say this, and really honest, Detroit's kind of growing on me. No Philly, but I gotta say Detroit's got some little things to it. Who'd have thought? But
because I spent 2 years there, man. It's the spot, man. It's actually an up and coming city. I played there 2 years. I mean, you got to get down to Greektown, man. And you go to Fishbone. That's some great food there, bro. Fishbone.
Where were you yesterday, man? I needed some of that.
Needed to tell him about it ahead of time. Now he's looking at it. Now you're going to tell him where to go.
Alligator voodoo.
Thanks very much, Barrett.
Oh, my God. And I haven't eaten yet, so I'm hungry now. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. Something Barrett and I kicked around in the first segment. Maybe you've got all the answers for us. The Eagles look like a team that didn't practice, didn't want to get ready, didn't know what day the season started on the defensive side of the ball. The Lions, who aren't all that talented an offensive team, went through them, over them, around them for a 35 spot. Luckily, the offense looked like a well-oiled machine. Like, what do you mean, practice? Who needs practice? We're perfectly fine. We're good to go. AJ and Jalen, the boys, they're going to come in and kill the National Football League. It's so diversely opposite. As good as the offense looked, the defense looked equally as bad. And it's the same team that was practicing or not practicing in the offseason, which we kind of questioned, certainly here on Bird 365. I'm pretty sure you did too. How'd you get such diverse results out of week one on each side of the ball?
I think offensively, they were willing to take some chances early. I mean, the Detroit defense didn't want to let that happen because they started blitzing, but you saw once they got comfortable, they were able to do that. I think defensively, they were trying to play it safe a lot. I think they were trying to get some fillers out there and not seeing Ben Johnson for the first time. And so he played a lot of that cover four, and you see him spread out. But the problem was Detroit took the physical approach and said, okay, you want to try to do that? We're just going to run it right down their throats. And I thought there was a lot of things that this team needs defensively to clean up, especially when it comes to the run game. I don't think the defense is going to be as bad as it was yesterday, but it can because they can do better. But there's still things they need to tweak on there.
Looking at them as a whole on the defensive side of the ball, man, I just didn't see I didn't see the defensive line making that impact that I thought they were. That's the most experienced position we have on the defense, and I thought they would step up a little more. I think it's more so. I don't know if you saw this or not, but I think it's more so the experience and the players that Detroit had, and Tyler Decker and Penei Sewell and Ragnow that really they showed up. So they might have just got whooped by a team that's a little better than they were.
And I think also when you look at what they were doing too, like the defensive line, especially early on when Swift was breaking off those runs, it looked like they were over pursuing it and didn't have the gap discipline too. So you saw
that's right.
them too. You saw Sweat going. You saw the defensive ends, especially they were rushing all the way upfield. And the next thing you know, it was like, okay, thank you very much. You just opened a big gap on one side. And then you look on the inside with the defensive tackles, they were getting washed down. So I think overall, it was a lot of gap discipline. But once that's something they started to get better as the game goes on. But it still was. You look at the names, you're thinking like, okay, these guys should get more than one sack along the defensive line, and the guys who got them, I gave them one because it was a half sack because there was a Sweat and Cox something like that. But they need Brandon Graham and Cox, excuse me, but they need to do better in that line.
But Chris, and I know we're supposed to be interviewing you, but this is, I just want to say this. Detroit took advantage of the aggressive nature of the defensive line also. Let me say that. The big plays that they had was a simple trap plays. And that what trap plays are, they let the defensive tackle get up the field. They trap them. Everybody else lets him up, and then that back just goes straight downhill. That's great scheming by the offensive coordinator, understanding how aggressive, how these guys run gap, get up the field to try to create havoc, and they just run right in behind them. That's crazy. Came back from that. Appreciate that, Chris. Appreciate it.
No worries. Yeah,
I appreciate it too, but he always be my question. After the first time they did it, the big play by Swift early on, do they not get coached up? Does a coach not get in their ear and remind them, hey, no, stay in your gap. Don't over pursue. And they did it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. At some point, you got to go, oh, well, you're a little bit too aggressive. We can understand. No, the first time you get burnt for 50, it's time to adjust. And they didn't adjust. What happened?
and that's what I was wondering. It took for so long. I thought, especially after that first drive, you think they go, okay, maybe we shouldn't go as much, or maybe play a little bit more contained, or what have you, and try to muscle it a little bit. But they didn't do that, and that's one that goes once again. It goes up to the defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, who I think he did not have his best day when you look at everything. And I thought when you started to see the Eagles actually starting to bring pressure inside, when they brought Devonta Maddox off the edge, when you started seeing they were applying pressure, they were getting to Goff. And when you have quarterbacks like Jared Goff, who will pretty much gift you 2 turnovers if you put pressure on them, and they just step back and do it, I thought the game plan was it didn't sit as well. And once again, they're saying they didn't know what Ben Johnson was doing, but I think after a while, especially after one half of that, you got to make the adjustments to be able to stop that.
That's hard though. That's hard from a defensive standpoint when your scheme is to be aggressive like that, and I don't know if you could turn that off. When you go against a scheme like that, that's when your linebacking level have to be on point. They have to make the play. But you can't tell these guys don't bid up the field and be aggressive, and then they stop doing that, and then it takes you out of your scheme of what you're doing. So I think the linebackers then have to go out there and adjust to the aggressive nature that the defensive line. Cause I got to have those guys still being aggressive, but I need that linebackers to make a point. But I mean it's just tough. We still can't get past the big plays in a run. You're right, but there's still a sense of urgency for Gannon to finish cooking this stew. These guys haven't played together for a long time. There's still guys still trying to get to a point where they understand each other, playing with each other. We're talking about CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's still learning how to be and where his fit is in the run game, and you still have linebackers like Kazir White still trying to fit in where he fits in. You're only going to get that after reps and reps and reps. They'll eventually learn that. But yes, defensively we saw some holes, but as a whole, I saw a little more aggressive nature from Gannon. Did you see that aggressive nature?
I saw it a little bit when he started bringing those blitzes, and I saw from that aspect. But when I look at the edges, and I don't know. Well, they did a good job, in my opinion. They did a good job covering the flats area. But to have Hassan Reddick continually going out into the flat as much as he did, I know he's not going to do it all the time, but as much to have him go out in the bid, he's probably your best pass rusher. Like when you look at this overall pure talent-wise in the edge, he's probably your best. He is your best pass rusher. And they couldn't even take that away and just having him go out in the flats. I thought that was. I would have stuck with playing more in the box, play 8, not play 8. Probably like basically be more compact and not get spread out as much as they did, because I thought that created some more running room as well too. And then when you look at Gardner Johnson, they started sneaking him, moving him around. First of all, I was shocked that he got as much playing time as he did, especially coming in like 10, 11 days ago. Like 67 snaps.
Yeah,
so it's craziness on that one too. But I thought they could be more a little bit. I thought they could have done a little bit more things disguised. And once again, it's week 1, so I don't know how much of the stuff they can install or they feel comfortable with doing that. And based on what the Lions were doing, playing and dumping and stuff off, what Goff does best, but stuff has to change.
All right, you guys are bending over backwards to find the silver lining in a pretty dark 35 points allowed to the Detroit Lions cloud on the defensive side.
Jody, you can't tar and feather them yet, man. Give them an opportunity to let these guys play together a little bit.
Barrett, listen well. I sure as hell can. They gave up 35 points to a bad Detroit Lion offensive team. You know who's coming next week? Justin Jefferson.
Yes.
And the Vikings. Yes. You want to compare the Lion offense to the Viking offense?
I don't want to see all this. I want to see the gritty going everywhere.
Eagle defense. The Vikings could put up 50 if they put out that same defensive effort next week. Now, so I do want to get to the offense, which looked great. I don't want to be Mr. Negative Nelly here, but the defense was just poor yesterday. Jordan Davis was in on less than 1/3 of the snaps on defense yesterday. Did the coach speak to that after the game? Did anyone talk about why Jordan Davis, the new savior on the Eagles' defensive line, was only in there for less than 1/3 of the snaps yesterday?
Didn't have a chance to talk to him that much, but when it comes to that, I was mostly in the locker room. That one too. That's going to be something that I think Jonathan Gannon's going to have to question, especially with a guy with them having so much success running the ball. Why not put the guy who was specialized at in Georgia and can eat up some space? You don't think that happened, but from what I saw, limited. I'm waiting for the all 22 to come out. Everyone see that, but we're looking at the TV copy. He did stuff some areas as well too. I mean, the one time I thought he shot out like a missile, like in the middle of the field. You saw him dive, and then he got somebody, a Lions offensive line came back on the back of his knee and everything. I was like, is he okay? I thought he was down for a while, but he looked fine on that one too. I think overall he didn't make the impact that you'd like to see a first round pick did, but neither did Aiden Hutchinson. So it's still going to be. It might be one of those things where he has to wait a little bit, a couple weeks to finally get a flow of things. You don't want to necessarily see that happen, especially if you take somebody that high and you trade up to get that. But it's still he's still a work in progress in some of that things. I still want to see him get. I still want to see even better when it comes to his pass rush too.
All right, let's flop it over to the offense because, I'm tired of beating up the defense. Well, I'm not really that tired. We still got an hour and 25 minutes to go, and I'll continue to beat them up because they were terrible yesterday. But the offense was great. Barrett said the offensive line could have been better, and I got to take his word for it because he did it for a living. I just sit here and watch. But, shuttling backs, using all their backs, Miles Sanders with that huge run late, but had been good throughout the game. Jalen making the plays that he made with his legs. A.J. Brown doing everything we could have asked and more. The offense was phenomenal yesterday. Again, I'll try and get you to answer this one. The defense and the offense both were at practice together all preseason, right? They didn't have just offenses and just. They were all there together, and they all put in the minimal amount of work that they did. Doesn't seem to have hurt the offense a little bit. They look great. The defense looked like they didn't know each other out there on the field. Is it just that defense means physicality and you've got to practice physicality, and offense is all just the mind and the ability to go out there and make plays that you don't need as much work to be ready for a season? Why such the separation between the offense and the defense yesterday, Chris?
Well, I think the offense is just overall, when you look at the overall talent that you have that on that side of the ball, this offense can legitimately be a top 5 offense. I think that's where the disparity is. I think you saw the rotating line. I think when it comes to the physicality part, I think the offensive line, I'd worry about that more being physical than the defensive line when it comes to like in the fact. I wish the defense tackled a little bit more. That I think that's very fair to say, because you saw some of those, they were throwing shoulders instead of wrapping up, and that's how the Lions got a lot of yards. But I think overall, it's just the talent you see on the offensive side of that ball. They can beat you a lot of ways. And the scary thing is, especially when it comes to that run game, you got all 3 of your running backs getting a touchdown. You still have Trey Sermon on this roster. He's not even up to speed yet, too. He can be a fit that. I think he's probably the most physical back you have that you can use in those 4-minute situations when like the Eagles did this past game. So you look at all the pieces. You look at that. You look at the diversity you can use and how you can attack. I think overall, it's just that offense. I think is got more talented defense by a lot, personally.
Like I said, I was talking to Jody about how physical the offensive line can be, and the reason why I said they're not to where they need to be yet is they're not physically in shape as much as I've seen them in the past. Because as an offensive line, you go down and pick guys off. You're helping your wide receivers up, even on long plays. I didn't see that. I saw a lot of stopping and looking, as an offensive line, and you just don't do that. How many times have you seen, Jordan Mailata right there after a long run that his quarterback has, picking them all off the ground, pushing guys away from him? Wasn't a lot of that seen, and that's because these guys just aren't in shape yet. Overall, I think this team really suffered a little more than we're giving them credit for because they didn't do the little things as far as playing in the preseason, which allow you to play better going into the first game. Do you still think that it's a plus, even though they came in perfectly healthy, besides Dillard? But do you see the disparity between the way Detroit was flying around and the Eagles' offense was flying around?
Well, I like the way that Detroit the way if I'm going to attack the Eagles' offense, the best thing you can do is probably put as much pressure as you can and just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to try to make you beat you quickly because I think when you look at if teams start to play the Eagles in more zone, I think that benefits the Eagles because then I think Jalen Hurts can start picking apart in that second, third level where with the tight ends with AJ Brown around there. I saw Detroit starting to bring a lot of pressures off the edges. They started bringing a lot of blitzes, and the Eagles didn't have a lot of people to account for that. So, and they snuck Sanders out into a pattern, or they put Gainwell into a pattern, what have you. And the next thing you know, you saw like one person keep a slide and running all these stunts aside, like, and they were lucky Jalen Hurts was as mobile as he can because I think if you had somebody like I don't know, like a statue, if you had Jared Goff playing with this Eagles offense right now, Jared Goff would probably be with a bunch of icy hot walking around like the guy right now going like what's going on with this one. So they got bailed out with that, but I think that Detroit played aggressive. Detroit was playing that like that was their Super Bowl because they were throwing everything they had to. They were trying to be as aggressive as they can. So I think that has something to do with as much pressure as Hurts saw when it came to that. But the O-line, I'm not long term. I'm not going to be worried about the O-line, but it can definitely be better on that.
Right. The offensive line might not have been perfect, but they were pretty damn good. And, oh, by the way, when they were overman, bringing blitzes, the Lions adding guys to the line, Jalen Hurts made him pay, either with his arm or with his leg, certainly with his leg, 17 carries for 90 yards, and moving the chains and getting clutch first downs was phenomenal. But 18 for 32 for 243. Yeah, he didn't throw a touchdown, but he got him right down there in the red zone. And they were able to pound it home offensively with the running game thereafter, including one Jalen run himself for a touchdown. Scale of A to F, A plus F. What would you give Jalen Hurts as a grade in yesterday's performance, Chris?
I'd give him a B. I thought I think overall, I like the way he's made. That's what Jalen is. It's just like, okay, Jalen, there's a fire over there. All right, cool, we'll get out. Oh, hey, we're going to run this way. All right, it's cool. Hey, you won a lottery. All right, cool. That's just a meter. So I think when you saw they got behind, that helped him out a lot. That didn't phase him one bit. I thought that he used his legs, and you saw that start to affect Detroit because then they started having those back guys on the backside. Like, oh no, maybe he's got the ball. He pulled him a couple yards that way. Next thing you know, he got the backs running out that way. There were a couple of times where he had some receivers open, and I thought he could have hit them a little bit sooner because I thought for bigger plays downfield. And that, once again, you want to see him do better with that. I thought he navigated the pocket well. When he got time and they developed a pocket around him, I thought he sat very well. So when you look at the whole body of work, I think it's B. But I think the only thing he would have gotten an A is he started hitting some of those passes a little bit earlier and got them to there instead of skipping a couple of them.
Well, I can't wait right now, man. I think that you're going to see a better team Monday night than you saw against Detroit. That's number one. But did you have any question as far as, Smitty not getting a catch, Smitty not, being in the offense? I was kind of surprised that Devonta Smith didn't have a catch. Nobody's really talking about that either.
Yeah, I think he had one. But I think I'm not worried about
targeted 4 times, no catches.
Wow, that's crazy. Like, I think when I look at that, I'm not worried about it because I'll say this. It's going to be an overcorrection this week coming up. I can see them going like, okay, well, Brown's gotten all the targets. Browns don't want to do it. Let's shade a safety over this side. Let's shade the coverage over this side too. And then all of a sudden, you got him one-on-one against on the backside. I think you see more single coverage. So I would have liked to see him caught the one. I thought those trusses one there in the sideline. I thought you did, but you catch that one a little bit better. But overall, I think I'm not concerned about that one. I would love to see the tight ends more involved. I think you could basically, especially if you're going to start attacking the outside more. And I love to see Quez Watkins more involved. I would love to see him take a deep shot to try to soften up those safeties out back too. So I'm not concerned overall. I think it'll come there. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a day where he has like say near 100 yards in the near future as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Monday night because they're going to be worried about Brown. So it's not going to be worried at all. Now, if we're talking about game 8, game 9, and we're like, where's Devonta Smith? Yeah, I think sound the alarms on that.
Agreed. CF, let me ask you this. Do we need to send a thank you card to Dan Campbell, who before the end of the first half decided to call a timeout when it was really a long shot that they were going to be able to get the ball back and go far enough down the field if the Eagles got any kind of a decent punt from Sipas, who, oh, by the way, wasn't that bad. Way to go, Aaron. We know he's good last year in the first half, not so good in the second half, but he did a nice job punting the rare frequent times that he had to. He calls the timeout. Then they hit the big play to Brown. The Eagles get the score going into half and then get one coming out of half. So the whole deferred thing worked perfectly for them yesterday. But it all started with Dan Campbell calling a timeout when I thought he was crazy to be taking a timeout. Didn't he learn anything from Hard Knocks, Dan Campbell? When he supposed to pick some things up there doing that show?
I think we were talking to him last week, and he was asked about D1 Hard. He's like, you could tell he wasn't thrilled about being on there. He's like, I'm just doing what the league tells me to do. So you can tell he doesn't do that. But there's a couple. I think they sent him a gift basket. There's a couple decisions he made that I was kind of curious. I know, especially the onside kick.
Yes.
Because I thought that I know they had the momentum, but to do an onside kick like that
All right, wait. Time out, Detroit.
All right.
Both of you guys look into the camera.
Okay.
You saw that coming. You knew they were going onside kick.
Actually, no.
Okay, so the fact that he could have caught Barrett Brooks, Jody McDonald, Chris Frank, you got to give him at least that much. I thought the actual timing of it, this is the way I judge onside kicks. If you had no idea it was coming, then it was a good decision to try it. Now you got to execute it, and you got to make the play, and more power to the Eagles. So who was it who covered? Was it
Zach McPherson?
McPherson made the play. Yeah. Way to go, Zach. So yes, they sniffed it out. I didn't. You didn't. Barrett didn't. So it wasn't that bad a decision. You just have to execute it better and give credit. Here's one. Barrett keeps giving credit to the other team. Oh, the Lions' offensive line was great. I don't buy it. The Eagles' defense sucked. But here's one where I will give credit to I think that actually was a pretty good call by Dan Campbell, but just give credit to McPherson for being on top of it and making a play. That's one where you tip your hat to the opposition.
See, I disagree on that because I think when you're in that way, the way the onside kick works nowadays, even if it's a prize and you can try to drop the best one, it's so tough to actually get the ball and recover them. It's so rare, and you gave the Eagles a chance at good field position and the maneuver ball downfield, and even if they score or not, whatever that, if they punt that one too or that one too, you flip the field, you put yourself in worse position as well too, put yourself deep. So I don't like the way. I just didn't like that at all, and I think you kind of killed your own momentum in that aspect. So I get what you're saying when it comes to there. Like it's surprised that it's just when it came to that, and it was timeout usages and everything else. It's like you can see he's the second year going, and I wonder if he coaches more off emotion, going, yeah, let's go with this one too, and then instead of thinking like, maybe we should kind of want that one back. Either way, I know.
After the fact, you're very right.
Yeah. That's why I'm here. Not coaching.
Eagles keep the ball. Eagles got a short field. Yeah, what the fuck were you thinking about there?
Yeah.
I love it, man. But yeah, I mean, yes, Dan is an old school coach, man. Like I played with Dan, and Dan has always been, what you see is what you get from him. He's not doing it for the camera. That's exactly who Dan is. Dan was actually Jeremy Shockley's handler. Actually, when it was Shockey's first year, his rookie year, I was there for rookie year, and he had to keep Shockey from pull him back in, reel him back in sometimes. So he'll have that team going. I'm glad we caught him at the beginning of the season, because as he gets more, he's going to get better as a coach, and that's why I'm not jumping off the bridge now. The Eagles will get better as they go forward, regardless. I know Jody's thinking, "Oh, our D-line sucks." They don't. I'm just telling you. Detroit hasn't really.
They did yesterday. I'm not saying they're going to be that all year long. They better not, otherwise it's going to be a long season.
Hey, sometimes you get the Bears. Sometimes the Bears
just flat out bad, Barrett. They got no pressure. Hassan Reddick, how much we paid him? He was non-existent.
Yeah, I'm trying to put a rainbow in it, but you're just not going to allow me to do it.
Cover their, what's their backsides. That was not a great effort out of the Eagles' defensive line. All right, so Chris, coming back on the plane, everybody's up because they won. A couple of guys got to look themselves in the mirror, but they'll show up for practice this week and get ready. Doesn't get any easier. Vikings come to town. Justin Jefferson. I watched a lot of that Packer game, second game of the doubleheader yesterday, and they threw it pretty darn well through the air. They better get some pressure on Kirk Cousins next week, because he'll pick them off a hell of a lot more so than Jared Goff did this week.
Why do I foresee it? And I can see them doing it, seriously. Them trying to do a play action pass. If they get the run game going, I see a play action pass going to Jalen Rager down down the middle of the field and try to take a deep shot. Why do I
Wait a
say
minute,
like
I
this
didn't
happening?
even see what Rager did yesterday. Shame on me. I should have checked that box score.
I haven't checked it, but I just see that.
I know
I just see him taking
Justin
one shot
Jefferson
with
had
that.
a $187.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's kind of tough
yeah,
to cover.
yeah. I'm looking at that. It's going to be tough. It's going to be one of the things. It's one they have to stop Dalvin. I think that's the key. Stop Dalvin Cook. I think he can do a lot better with everything else in that one too, because it's bad enough you have to worry about Thielen and Jefferson and Cousins because he has this history with against the Eagles. If you get Dalvin Cook going, and then you can't send as many linebackers or whatever nickelbacks back into coverage as you can to try to stop that passing offense, I think they're in trouble. So, yeah, whatever they have to do to fix that defensive line, whatever they do to fix that, and need to do it, they better do it and do it quickly.
It'll be a lot different. Trust me,
or
Chris.
the over.
Trust me. I mean, I'm more comfortable going into this game than I really was against Detroit. I'm comfortable because I like our DBs. Our DBs can, and I know the defensive line will hear this all week, and they're going to be out there ready to just, drinking hot sauce and sniffing gunpowder. They're going to be so pissed off by the time we get through with this, and they're gonna wring Cousins' neck. I'm just letting you know now. I'm already saying it right now. All right.
Why do I have the image now of like Frank's red hot sauce on gunpowder? You literally put that in anything and ready for the next thing. Ready to go now. Oh goodness.
Your lips to the defensive
goodness.
lineman meeting room ears, Barrett. I hope you're right. By the way, Jalen Rager, 1 punt return for 7 yards.
Did better than that.
Cousins never actually got around to throwing the ball to him yesterday. Did not have any targets, but he did have a punt return. And oh, by the way, tip of the cap, Covey, good job. Yeah. He just caught the ball. He had one play where he actually made one nice move, turned it upfield, got a couple yards. Didn't wow anybody, but did the job yesterday on the punt return. So being elevated from the practice squad, more power to him. Chris Franklin, we know you got a plane to catch. Get back here to Philly/South Jersey. Thanks for jumping on with us this morning. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Take it easy, guys. Bro. Thanks for having me on. Thanks. Y'all have a good one now.
You got it.